I'm jumping in today to talk about e-commerce SEO. More specifically, I want to go through areas of focus for this year. There's a lot of changes going on, but then there's also a lot of things that are staying the same. So I'm just going to jump through some of the main elements that I think are worth talking about and how you can start to apply these things to your e-commerce SEO strategies as well. So I think the first one is around sort of commercial and informational content, and it's really important to look at how you can build out content areas across the site. Gone are the days of sort of just sticking keywords into the likes of Ahrefs or SEMrush and just hoping for the best. You can obviously still do things like competition keyword gap analysis. So this is really handy if you've got a new site, there's no traction whatsoever, or maybe you're redesigning a site or you're building out a site and it's already thin on content. You just want to get an idea of what's actually working when it comes to the competition. So this is really handy. I mean, the volume estimates, they're never always going to be 100% correct. Keyword difficulty, you don't tend to pay much attention to things like that, but it's nice to sort of look at different clusters. So if you're looking at, say, certain brands or certain product types, you can start to see what's working for competition based on actual page type. So when it comes to content planning, that's still really useful. But one of the big things I think is sort of taking that keyword research side one step further, especially with e-commerce SEO, is to get something like this. So there will be equivalents on other platforms. Obviously, you can use GA4 for internal search data as well if you set that up. But something like this is brilliant. So Shopify Search and Discovery, so you can get a real sense of not only what people are looking for when they're on the site when it comes to the type of content that you need, if it's specific products that you need to get in, but also if they're looking by certain product types. So if they're looking for like baggy or stripy or certain colors or certain sizes, where you're seeing the same things time and time again. These might be hidden by default in CMS filters. So this is a really nice way of using internal data to justify site structure. So you're going that extra step to not only make things easier for users to find when they're on the site, but also from an indexability side of things where maybe you wouldn't see that data coming from a third-party tool. But this is really handy where you can say, I know there's volume or I know there's interest from my audience side, regardless of what SEO tools say, because I've literally got that data here from what I can see is working for them. What I've also done as well from a content side is I've updated this analysis spreadsheet. So if you sign up to my newsletter, you'll get a link to this hub. This is one of the sheets in the hub. So you can start to build out, whether you put URL, you could put a sort of any phrase you want in here, I suppose. So a top level cluster. Start to get a look at your Search Console data and how it relates to that keyword. So again, from an e-commerce side, when it comes to content planning, you can get a real sense of how does your current sort of Search Console data match up to the queries that are already there and the queries that you're looking to target. So you could do different ones here, but what you can also do then is look at FAQ opportunities for certain clusters too. So when it comes to existing content, how can you start to build out the on-page element? So the FAQs, the supporting below the fold content for collections pages, maybe even how you need to start approaching product pages, product FAQs, things like branded FAQ sections even, and standalone pages that are really dedicated to answering questions. Again, you won't necessarily get that data from something like a third-party tool, but it's really interesting when you've got a lot of that Search Console sort of query export data. It's a really nice way of categorizing opportunities. So I think when we're talking about that content side, don't just look at these external tools. Really dig deep into the user data that you've got, the internal search data, Search Console, GA4. Yes, this is great as a starting point, and I would still use this. But especially if you're quite established, you've got a lot of data, really try to use your internal data to justify content choices this year. And I think another one as well is understanding the buyer journey of the sort of audiences that you're targeting, and how your content approach needs to reflect that. So said this a few times in different videos, but not just assuming that a certain keyword will show for a certain type of content. So for example, that an informational keyword would just show for blogs or just show for videos. There very well might be commercial pages that are starting to rank for that as well. So really put yourself in the shoes of your audience and have the search results lead what content types are required there. So it's not just about articles. There's going to be a video element. There's going to be social content element to that. And start to think about how they would come down from different buyers' journeys. You know, what are those top level queries that they might start to put in when they're doing that initial research. Then they start to drill down on specific best of types. So again, how does the content need to reflect that? Is that more informational? Is it more commercial that you need to house on collections pages? And if so, how do you need to structure collections pages to reflect that? And then those top level commercial pages, again, how do the keyword targeting, what do the page types need to look like to reflect that? So it's not just about from an article side. I think when we say content planning, whether it's for e-commerce or whoever, it's really easy to get stuck into that blog article side of things. But it's not that anymore. It's what is being favoured for what might have been more typical search results in the past. How are those changing over time? How are SERP shifting? And even things like video and social content, how can you start to bring that together as part of your organic strategy, just to make sure that you've not only got all bases covered, but you're doing the right type of content for a certain cluster, so you stand the highest chances of getting the most visibility possible for those search terms. The next one is internal links and how you structure your on-site navigation. I was talking before about things like your internal filters and how you can start to open those up. Not necessarily just starting taking things out of the robots file, but building out specific subcategories where you're seeing volume and interest. So for example, on a menu, you might have ones that are still filtered out, or then you might have ones that link directly to subcategory pages. So there's still a filter, but they're ultimately indexable. And if there's search volume, there's interest around it, then users can obviously find those in search results as well. So for example, if it's a size filter, large white t-shirts, there's likely enough volume around there that needs an indexable page, rather than just a equals large, and then obviously there's no ability for search engines to find that page and to index it. So that's a thought in terms of how you're structuring the menu side of things. But also when it comes to planning out content, really starting to think about what your internal link strategy is going to be from content that you already have in a certain cluster and content that you're about to introduce as well. So I just find it's really helpful to just log opportunities when you're doing your content planning of, okay, this is the title here, this is the cluster or the sort of topical coverage that this article relates to, here's everything else that we've got within that, and then here are the internal link opportunities that already exist from those articles. So rather than doing yourself an extra job when you're already sat there writing it and you got to finish it and then do all this as part of content work, if you're doing it at the planning stage, it's really easy then to just go, yep, I've got this, and I already know there's 5 internal link opportunities that are just going to go back and forth between those pages, and I know they're already relevant. You can look for opportunities in something like Screaming Frog as well. So, if there's any with non-descriptive anchors, this is a really good one. These are already sort of saved in Screaming Frog. But then you can also just use custom search or custom extraction to pull out specific keywords or content types. So that's another way of, I guess, auditing internal links to look for opportunities specific to a certain cluster that you might be building out. So that's really handy when it comes to joining up the Search Console API with Screaming Frog, because then you can see what's the traffic, the impressions, the sort of aged trust in an article or a page, and then you can start to put together a sort of structure on, okay, I'm going to prioritize these pages because these ones are doing really well over the last 12 months. They've got the most sort of authority or power, if you like. So these ones are going to be the priority for internal links for this new batch of content that I'm doing, and I already know that they all relate to each other. It's logical for these to be all internally linking to each other. Flannels do a really good job of this as well, in terms of just how they've got internal links on commercial pages. So they've got your standard breadcrumbs, they've got internal links within top level content, and then they've got these little sort of buttons here, which again, my example where I was saying, say large white t-shirts that will typically just be blocked in the robots file, you've got those opportunities there where you've opened up these things for indexing. So it's not about just clearing out the robots file, it's not about just shoving loads of internal links from one page to another. Take a really strategic approach to it, and it'll just make your life so much easier down the line, because you're not having to unpick things where you're just doing so much from the internal linking side, but it just doesn't marry up with what you should actually be doing from a context side of things. So the next one is digital PR and thoughts around passive data resources or passive link building approaches. This has been one of my favorite things for years. I guess link building in general, digital PR is a huge one, and anything that can bring links in passively is a win in my book. So I think the expert commentary side is absolutely going nowhere. You can use platforms like Quoted. Let's say we had a fashion site, we could just put something like fashion in. You could also do more manual expert commentary, so fashion expert reveals. That could then be split between sort of more traditional expert commentary pieces. So what I find with that one is that it helps to have a calendar together of what you can start to put ideas, so if you know something is coming up with the Super Bowl, for example, and what celebrities are wearing, you can sort of kind of preempt expert commentary around that, so at least start to get the bare bones of an expert commentary structure, but then also have something similar with more of a reactive thing. So something happens from a fashion side of things, Google Trends spike, or there's TikTok data on a certain trend, you've got a template ready to go. It is a bit of a numbers game, but it's a really interesting approach to link building because you're not paying for these links, and you can start to build really nice relationships with journalists. I've had it over the years where quite a few journalists have got back in touch because they get pitched a lot of things that are irrelevant. They've got all these AI worries, and so when they do have, as ridiculous as it sounds, like real genuine experts, they tend to stay in touch. So expert commentary and anything around reactive and just getting the brand out there from that side of things, where it's not just sort of brand stories, it's you as an expert, you as a brand owner giving commentary on something. I can't see how that is ever really going to go away, and it's a really interesting angle from a link building side. Statistics is a big one as well. So journalists and publishers, they're always looking for stats to back up what they're writing. You can do this in literally any niche. So here, workwear statistics, for example, like a really specific one, but you've got people writing about it. Good thing is, it doesn't have to be your data. You can just take it from the likes of Statista or whoever, just put together a really nice resource and just make sure that you're citing where you got the data from. But it's quite interesting because even though it's not necessarily your data, your findings, you're probably the one that's going to get the link because you put together the best resource. So as new data and new stats and different formats come out through the year, you can keep that page updated. And yeah, it's just a really nice way of building your own, I suppose, little internal authority hub there. So instead of just having to worry about, say, paying for links and driving them to certain products or categories, which just leaves way too much of a trail for search engines, this is a really natural approach to it. So you're powering up this hub that's very naturally getting links in from journalists and publishers. Obviously you can do some blogger outreach, some niche edits on top of that just to get it going. That's something that I've done in the past as well, because sometimes when it's quite competitive, it can be quite tough to get that initial traction. So it does help, but as you're starting to then build that up passively, internally linking back to your commercial pages, they pick up a bit of that power, but there's obviously way less risk compared to just buying a load of links and shooting them to a commercial page or something like that. In the same way, thinking about things like tools and calculators, obviously AI has made this really, really easy now to start building out these sorts of things for any niche. And it's interesting how niche these can go. So like t-shirt printing calculator, you've got profit estimators, different strategy calculators, size calculators. There's so many things. And again, even if they don't necessarily pick up a lot of links, it's one of those top level research content types that can, really introduce you as a brand to a new audience. So you have the link potential, the sort of passive link elements, but then there is that side of things when it just comes from you're actually attracting the right audience type to coming into the site because it's a hyper specific tool or data or calculator or whatever it is, that is introducing you to an audience that otherwise might not have found you at the research stages. And then a final one with talking about sort of blogger outreach and publishers. So this is one of the approaches that I would take if I was just starting blogger outreach from scratch for a new client. So just getting into the headspace of what bloggers are actually writing, so rather than just searching for fashion bloggers, because there'll be so many on there in these like sort of pre-built lists where you've got PBNs in there, you've got link farms in there, This is a more manual approach to it, but it just makes so much more sense. So immediately you're looking for ones that are already getting traffic, they're already writing about things in your niche. So if we're a clothes retailer or a hoodie retailer more specifically, let's say a site like this, best men's brands for hoodies, that's the perfect sort of thing that a fashion blogger might be talking about. We can go and see how legitimate the site is, see if they're active on socials, see if they're linking out to like casino or forex or whatever. They're not in this instance. Get a top level understanding of the traffic coming into the site, and then you can add them to an outreach list. But what I would also do is look at who else they're linking out to. So I just put traffic of 1,000 to 100k. You can do whatever, and then just sort them by first seen. So then I can start to see like who else are they linking out to, who might be showing evidence of proactive link building. So some of these might not be, this one might not be, could just be a brand partnership, could just be a very natural link that goes out, there's been no sort of communication. But it's really interesting because then you can start to see, okay, if these guys are doing active outreach, who else are they then getting links from? So you can start to find other legitimate sites much quicker than if you were just searching for, tons of different variants of this. That's a really nice way of finding niche relevant bloggers that probably then also still pass your sort of authority and traffic and all these other requirements, and you're not having to use these preset lists that can just do more harm than good over the long term. And then the final one is considerations around AI. I'm not 100% sold on AI SEO as a totally standalone strategy. You've got things like Reddit comments and people talking about schema, which I don't think directly influences the AI side of things. Reddit comments, again, like, yes, it might work for now, but how long is gaming the system they're going to work? I think they're really starting to clamp down on all those side of things. By all means, if you want to test that, absolutely do it, but it wouldn't be something that's part of like a real concrete strategy in terms of like, yeah, it'd be great to have those mentions, but go about it organically. Don't just try and buy them and game them, because it just might not work in the next couple of months. From an AI side, from what I mean for most site owners is, one, considerations around how content is presented, so that you're just like you should be doing anyway for search engines, how content is structured properly, using proper headings, tables, bullet points, different structured data formats, and that should be something that you're doing already. So just do a bit of an audit of your site for existing content and maybe put together a template for how you want content to look, especially from an article side of things as well, just so that you're sticking to the format, you're not having to go through and redo them. But there's two big things really. I think one, YouTube, I can't see how that's going to be dropped as a sort of reliable source for LLMs. So going back to my point on content planning, and you're seeing things like, for informational queries, YouTube's always there, socials are always there. So I think YouTube is going to be a huge part of organic, more broadly for 2026. If it's not already something that you're looking into as a brand, I'd highly encourage it. Not only do you then get the opportunities from YouTube as its own sort of search system, but you get those opportunities here in more quote unquote traditional search results, but then you also get the opportunities from within the LLMs themselves, just because they're relying on that as a source. So video, YouTube more specifically, really, really good opportunity for 2026. And then also I think just looking at and understanding the differences in terms of how LLMs are conducting searches compared to more, your traditional Google, and then what your content opportunities might look like. So again, I'm not saying go and build out loads of best of lists, just to start to game LLMs, but more looking at how does your content differ to maybe what is already ranking in Google versus what is showing up in all the different LLMs. What are the commonalities, and then what can you learn from that? So for example, best heavyweight hoodies for men, we're seeing a blend of information, commercial, Reddit, obviously like product threads, discussions and forums. You've got video on there. And then I use this ChatGPT path tool just to get a quick look at sources that are then used in ChatGPT for the same searches, And you can see how these are then different. A lot of them are very year specific, which LLMs seem to lean more heavily into. But you can see how what they're doing from a product side, what they're getting from a sources side. And then what I would do is put that into a spreadsheet just to start to build that out of, okay, what brands are mentioned from a product side, what are they doing in terms of overall brand visibility and trust that I can start to look at as a brand, from a review side, from an EEAT side of things. Why are these being chosen over other ones? The actual sources, so is it informational content? Are there ones that we could reach out to from an outreach side of things as well? So it's not just copying what's already there, it's can I actually start to get listed and reach out to these guys if that is an opportunity, if it's publishers being cited, or if it is certain content types from trusted brands, how can I start to copy that or mimic certain approaches? And then the same with Google as well, are we seeing the same things ranking in LLMs and Google? If not, what are those differences? Is it just the fact that LLMs are going more for fresher data? So Google is stuck on 2025 guides, and because we're only still in January, is LLMs, or ChatGPT more specifically, is that leaning into more 2026 side of things, but is the content itself the same? So thinking about content type requirements, how things do actually differ. Do you really need to go and separate out AI SEO opportunities versus more traditional SEO opportunities? I don't think you do. I think it's more just about how content marries up across both of those. And, it's still early days realistically on the LLM side of things. So I think, like the way that SERP shift, LLM search results are going to shift as well. It's constantly being evaluated. So not putting loads of weight on, yes, we're going to go all in on these best of articles or whatever it is. If it is something that's already ranking, already working well for you, and you can have that data to justify it, then absolutely. But I certainly don't think just going all in on a certain AI strategy because it's working now. So just having the time to do that research and making sure that at the end of the day, it's brand building and it's trust. So if those content opportunities and those content approaches fall within that, then by all means, absolutely do it. Yeah, so those are just my thoughts, really. So just to summarize, you're reviewing and analyzing opportunities across commercial and informational content. That includes not just relying on external platforms. They are useful in terms of a research side of things, but really relying on your internal data, especially if you've already got years and years of that and you're just not using it to sort of best effect. And also really understanding how buyer journeys work and what people are searching at different stages in their journey, how you as a brand can meet them there. And that's across sort of within traditional search results, within video, within LLMs as well. How you look at internal links and the navigation for users when they're already on the site. So those thoughts around breadcrumbs, how you introduce potentially subcategories and commercial pages that might be currently blocked in filters. So thoughts around that. And again, using that internal search data to justify what that needs to be. Your approach to internal linkings and how that marries into a content planning side of things, just to make that process much more efficient for you. And also keeping on top of auditing your internal links too, using something like Screaming Frog is perfect for that. From a digital PR side and link building, really going in on that expert commentary approach. If you're in a niche where that lends itself well to it, it's absolutely brilliant. And that could be across responding to journalist requests, more proactive expert commentary pieces, and how you can approach the reactive side. And then the really exciting part is the passive link building elements, so the tools, the calculators, the statistics pages. I always struggle saying that one, but they've always been so good, and now AI is just here to help you along with that, especially when it comes to building tools. If you don't have dev resource and things like that, using AI to build simple tools is a really nice win. And then also those thoughts on the blogger outreach side as well. So not just going for these static sort of lists of the best 500 fashion bloggers who might not be interested in link building opportunities, might be link farms in there, all sorts. So thoughts around how you can do more custom outreach. And like I've shown you, you can then look at who more legitimate bloggers are linking out to and start to build out link prospect lists off the back of the links that your competition or sites in your niche are building as well. And then finally, thoughts on AI considerations. So not necessarily what's going to game things in the short term, But how is what LLMs are serving marrying up to your current SEO strategies, and what do you need to do to be part of that conversation that you're not already? And that could be more from a brand side of things more broadly, it could be content specific, but just looking at what you might be missing, what's already working, what's already being favored in the LLMs, and then using that data to justify long-term strategies and bringing that into your traditional SEO approach. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. I said it was going to be a short video. I don't think it actually has been. But yeah, more of these coming soon, and I'll catch you in the next video.